勝負だカカロット。恋すぎだ。
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is AES and welcome to my YouTube channel. My connection to the Resident Evil franchise exists with its fair share of hot takes. I had only reviewed 6 Resident Evil games in the past, and here is a ranking of said list from best to worst. Resident Evil Village is the ultimate experience, followed by Resident Evil 4 Remake, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil Revelations, and Resident Evil 4. I also played Resident Evil 5, but I have not officially reviewed it on my Twitter account, so it will have to wait for its turn before joining the official ranking. It is safe to say that I am not in love with the franchise, but I do not mind some of its newest entries. Resident Evil Requiem, which was released in the later part of February 2026, feels like a celebration of the series. It plays homage to the first-person titles with Grace's gameplay, while commemorating the impact of third-person action survival horror with Leon's gameplay. However, does Requiem pay tribute to its predecessors in a way that both new and veteran players can appreciate? We will find the answer together in this video. Without further ado, let's review Resident Evil Requiem, which was played on the base PlayStation 5, but was released on February 27, 2026 for the Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, Nintendo Switch 2, and PC. Story. This portion of the video will be short because I would like to keep this video spoiler free. I will mainly focus on the information that is presented to us at the beginning of the game. Let us begin. Resident Evil Requiem takes place 30 years after the initial outbreak in Raccoon City. You experience the tale from 2 perspectives. On one hand, you have Grace, an FBI agent who has family history in the location where she is sent to investigate a series of murders. On the other hand, you have Leon S. Kennedy, a veteran of the series and an investigator who crosses paths with Grace and portrays his superhero persona. While it has no direct connection to the previous entry in the series, Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil Requiem's story is solid and incorporates a surprising mechanic in its finale. The writing is also serviceable, with Leon's catchy one-liners making a welcome comeback. My only complaint is Grace's inconsistent characterization, but I will not say anything else due to spoilers. All in all, the plot in Resident Evil Requiem is suspenseful, constantly intriguing, and encourages you to root for both protagonists. Visuals and audio design. Resident Evil Requiem is quite the looker on the PlayStation 5. The use of light gives you a sense of awe and terror. The level design is mysterious, yet not too bloated in a way that frustrates you during any segment of backtracking. The game may not have the same array of intriguing levels as Resident Evil Village, but the way that each level is incorporated into Requiem is spectacular nonetheless. Each level is carefully crafted for the type of gameplay that you experience at the moment. You may have blockades during Leon's gameplay due to the action-packed moments that require strategic gunplay, but you will not find those blockades during Grace's more hide-and-seek-esque gameplay. It's cool to see how the level design does not conflict with your objectives as Grace and Leon, and the entire experience ran 99% of the time flawlessly for me at 60 frames per second, despite having a single moment of slowdown while Leon was climbing a set of stairs. As far as the audio design is concerned, Resident Evil Requiem continues to excel per the franchise's standards. The audio cues of an incoming enemy, the bombastic soundtrack when Leon goes into full gear, and the sound effects of the weaponry are all top-notch. The voice acting is also well executed for each of the heroic characters. Grace's clumsy personality nicely complements the tension that she exhibits throughout the game. Leon, on the other hand, evokes the fatigue that a man in his position would experience at this point in time, which at first I considered as monotone, but later appreciated due to Leon's age and history within the Resident Evil franchise.
What does Victor want with you?
What?
Grace,
What do you
he
mean?
grabbed you for a reason.
Wait, you're DSO. That's the counter bioterrorism agency, right?
Take this.
You sure?
You might need it.
The couple of villains on display in Requiem show hints of Resident Evil 5 with their mannerisms, but both their voice acting and their impact on the story leaves much to be desired, especially when you compare them as villains to the menaces of Resident Evil Village. Overall, both the visual and sound design of Resident Evil Requiem are to be commended, and the series maintains its streak in both regards. Gameplay. Imagine a universe where Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 7 had a baby. The baby's name is Resident Evil Requiem in terms of the gameplay because of the two protagonists' different playstyles. Grace's gameplay mechanics resemble the experience from Resident Evil 7. She's not completely defenseless like the protagonist of the Amnesia games, but she's not an action movie star like Leon. You will have to sneak around the enemies, especially in the beginning where you're limited by your inventory and your self-defense capabilities. Thankfully, you will ultimately unlock an ability that will allow you to craft different components such as healing items and ammunition. It will not only ask you to acquire crafting components, but also harvest fallen enemies for a specific type of material. You can assume that the harder the difficulty, the less resources you will discover in the environment. The other portion of Grace's gameplay focuses on the puzzles. Most of the game's puzzles are incorporated into Grace's portion of the game, as you will have to locate specific objects in the environment that will allow you to progress the narrative and move to the next location. When you encounter a puzzle with Grace, her experience resembles the first act of Leon's journey in Resident Evil 2 Remake, or Ethan Winters' time in Resident Evil Village's castle. It also helps that Resident Evil Requiem includes several detailed maps. There was never a moment where I did not know where to go or what to do. You will have to find them prior to using them, but they are at least available. On the other side of the coin, Leon will never leave you with a sense of dread. Similar to his playstyle in Resident Evil 4, Leon plays a typical action hero with plenty of items at his disposal. In addition to his iconic kick and his corny one-liners, he can acquire or purchase a plethora of weapons, as well as spend points after a specific point in the game to upgrade his weapons, purchase body armor, and buy additional healing items. The point system rewards you for going guns blazing as opposed to being on the defensive, which is a neat inclusion. Whereas Grace's gameplay is slower paced, Leon constantly moves forward while beating a much larger number of enemies. He's also the character that exclusively experiences the bosses in Resident Evil Requiem, who differ from one another by abilities and size, but share typical tropes from the franchise. If you played the Resident Evil game in the past, you have encountered bosses with the same gameplay mechanics. The last aspect that is exclusive to Leon's gameplay is a specific semi-open world level. I will not divulge any spoilers, but it offers a nice break from the other levels, even though it lacks the same sense of exploration and the semi-open world level from The Last of Us Part 2. Although Grace and Leon are different from one another as characters and in terms of combat abilities, they have a predictable similarity in the gameplay department. Both characters must fight off herds of infected personnel. How is the AI in Resident Evil Requiem? Quite good if I do say so myself. The enemies in Grace's portion of the game are quite impressive, particularly in the initial mansion. Excluding a few mini-bosses that roam around the environment, many of the infected zombies are separated by their personalities, and this separation can affect the gameplay. There are zombies who used to be custodians in their past lives, and they are infatuated with a single task, keeping the lights on. If you turn off the lights, they will come back and turn on the lights. If you ever use your flashlight on them, they will be stunned for a short while. There are other zombies who are unable to see, and there are infected who are obsessed with noise and cleanliness. You can use these personalities to your advantage, which certainly comes into play in the later parts of Grace's gameplay. The enemies that you face with Leon resemble their counterparts from Resident Evil 4, as they will run at you bare-fisted, holding a melee weapon or utilizing a gun. Even though the AI of the zombies is not as impressive as the AI of the zombies from Grace's perspective, Leon's portion of the gameplay experience more than makes up for it with its boss fights and a specific enemy type you fight in the last part of the game. Let's just say that you will need to use cover frequently during that portion of the game. Depending on your chosen difficulty setting, Resident Evil Requiem can last anywhere between 8 and 15 hours on your initial playthrough. The length of follow-up playthroughs drastically diminishes, due to the fact that you will know exactly what to do and where to go on subsequent journeys. Sadly, the game lacks the popular Mercenaries mode from older entries in the series, which is a shame because it would be cool to have more opportunities to kill enemies in time-based challenges with Leon, Grace, or other characters from the game. Even so, the main campaign and the gameplay of Resident Evil Requiem is enough to make the general experience worthwhile. Achievement and trophy support. If you have ever played a Resident Evil game, the usual suspects return. You will automatically earn many of the achievements or trophies through story progression, in addition to staple challenges such as beating the game without healing Grace or Leon, and beating the game under a specific time limit. Neither prolonged challenge is overly difficult, as you will know exactly where to go after your first playthrough. There are also a few miscellaneous trophies that will ask you to perform specific tasks, like destroying every part of a certain flower, killing 3 enemies with a single shot of the Requiem revolver, and forcing an infected enemy to kill another foe. Nonetheless, the most difficult challenge in the game, personally, is beating the game on its hardest difficulty, Insanity. Granted, completing the other challenges and saving your Insanity playthrough to the end will allow you to purchase infinite ammo and an infinite RPG rocket launcher, both of which will save a lot of the headaches that you will receive from a clean playthrough on the Insanity difficulty setting. I will admit though that I still struggled with those items in my possession, or better yet, when those items were taken away due to a narrative specific reason. Overall, I think that Resident Evil 7 and Village are more difficult than Requiem in terms of getting your digital hands on all of the achievements and trophies. I would rank the difficulty of earning all of the achievements and trophies a 7 out of 10 without utilizing the infinite ammo and RPG, and a 3 out of 10 while utilizing those rewards. Replayability and fun factor. Resident Evil Requiem only includes the main campaign and its package. Mercenaries mode is absent, and any type of multiplayer mode is, as expected, non-existent. With that being said, there are plenty of reasons to replay the game. If you're not keen on replaying Resident Evil Requiem for the sole purpose of re-experiencing the narrative, the game's unlockables and challenges may suffice. There are specific objectives in the title that will award you points. These objectives range from reaching the end of the game on the hardest difficulty setting, to earning a certain number of currency with Leon. Each objective rewards a specific amount of points, and those points can be spent on new weapons, cool items, or neat costumes for Grace and Leon. If you like a relatively stress-free time while playing on the Insanity difficulty setting, you will absolutely want to complete as many of these challenges as possible to earn a hefty amount of points. If you complete everything that the game has to offer, you look at around 20 to 25 hours of playtime. Is it worth $70? It is up to you to decide. I had a blast with Resident Evil Requiem, although it would not be a bad idea to wait until the title's price drops to $50 or $60 at most. At the end of the day, Resident Evil Requiem takes different components from previous entries in the series and combines them into a nostalgic amalgamation. Whether you're a fan of Ethan Winter's journey in Resident Evil 7 and Village, or you are a die-hard supporter of Leon S. Kennedy's adventure in Resident Evil 2 and 4, Resident Evil Requiem honors the franchise while continuing to sprinkle in new details that advance its lore. Although you can play it without experiencing the previous entries in the series, prior knowledge would create a more rewarding experience. Nevertheless, Resident Evil Requiem is still a good entry, and a solid survival action horror game in general. I'm giving Resident Evil Requiem on the PlayStation 5 an 8.5 out of 10. Well folks, that's the end of the video. Thank you very much for checking it out. What would you like to see from a future entry into the Resident Evil franchise? Resident Evil Requiem has many interesting explorable options. If it was up to me, I would take a remake of Resident Evil 5 and a continuation of the story in Requiem. We will have to wait and see the next product that will come out of Capcom's kitchen. Also, have you played Resident Evil Requiem? What is your favorite Resident Evil game? Which one is your least favorite? Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Till next time, have a great day or evening wherever you are. My name is AS, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.